We are live. Good evening. We are Mira and Mark Halpert from 3D Learner. If you have joined us in the past or seen our recordings, you may or may not notice we moved from Tuesday to Thursday nights. I think as all of us are sort of getting back into a fall schedule, we're realizing that our weeks are really busy. At the beginning of the week seemed to be a very challenging time for everyone, including us. So welcome to our Thursday night conversations. We hope you'll join us every week as we do this. Hopefully you'll join us live and join the conversation and have any questions, please post them. Please contact us at readinglearner.com. But we are talking tonight about how to assess for outrageous success with a balanced focus on strengths and challenges so that especially Mark, we have been working with students for over 25 years to be able to tailor a solution for your child and for you as an entire family. So welcome. We're glad to have you. We're glad to have you on a recorded, and we'd love to be able to have your feedback.
And we've also done a series of other videos that are available on our 3D Learner YouTube channel, which we welcome you to check out. We love subscriptions, and let's get going. So, who are these kids we're talking about? We're talking about kids who some people might label right brain, visual, or kinesthetic learners. They're kids who learn best when they see and experience information. They probably make up about 60+% of the population and probably 80 to 90% of the smart, struggling students.
That would be me. Right? I am the definite right brain visual learner in this team here. And we just see the world and learn very differently than our logical sequential counterparts.
Now, just recognize these same kids are often labeled with learning disabilities, dyslexia, ADHD, executive function issues, but their key strength is they learn best when they see and experience information.
Hands-on. I have to experience it best. Right? What is it that definitely, if I hear it, right? If I see it, if I do it, I will totally remember it. So that is, talk about paraphrasing it. These students are usually very well overlooked because sometimes they're wanting to learn. They're usually very compliant. They may not necessarily understand a lot about the verbal that's going on around them, but they can be. It's very easy for them to be able to slip through the cracks.
And they almost always have some executive function issues. Sometimes it's working memory, processing speed, attention,
planning,
organization and planning. One of the key things that happens with those things is that there are often discrepancies that are significant. So we've seen so many kids who are even 120, 130, 140 IQs with working memory of 80, 90, or 100, two standard deviations or more below that. And these kids struggle like the dickens. The key point is that all these skills are teachable. And these kids have the potential to learn. I mean, a 3D learner, we want to identify the issues, but we also want to address them.
Right. A key piece here is number 4 about frustration, anxiety, depression is often present. We sort of have that as a circle that goes around all of it. It could, if any one of these other issues are going on and there's enough, as Mark talks about, enough of a discrepancy, that's the part that we as parents pick up more than anything about the fact that they don't want to do it. It's like, why should I bother to be able to try? So getting to be able to start to be able to do things, when we talk even try, and that word try gets to be so overused and overworked because their frustration is, remember, it's sort of, I've seen this, or it kind of looks like something I've seen before. I couldn't do it then, and I can't do it now. And so why should I even bother to try? So that's the part, that's our aha wake up moment as parents that we need to be able to look at. Let's look a little bit deeper. That's where our assessment process comes into play more so than any other sort of assessment procedure, as you will, because we relate to kids where they're at and what they're doing and how they're doing. And I guess as a visual kinesthetic learner myself, I have some sort of empathy about what these kids are going through. So being able to relate to them on their level makes an enormous difference.
Just for your information, we're going to go into, is my child a visual, right brain, or kinesthetic learner in greater detail next week. But one of the other key points is visual processing, clearly a point of continuous debate. Some people will say dyslexia doesn't cause vision problems. We're not going into that debate because it's, to us, it's not a debatable issue. These turns out the visual or kinesthetic learner often has great peripheral vision, so they see out the world out here. But when they focus on the written word, they skip words and lines when reading over 70% of the time. And when it comes down to it, you just want to know whether you has that problem or not. The 70% number just tells us it's important to look for that. And when you take this kid that learns differently, may have these working memory, processing speed, attention, and visual processing issues, you can see where there might be a significant discrepancy between their potential, which is way up here, and their present performance, which is down here, which has been exacerbated by the being out of school and the discontinuous schooling that they've had over the last couple of years. So we're seeing kids that are way further behind than they would have been under ordinary times. Now, what do we suggest the parents do? One, if your kid's a lot smarter than present results would indicate, we believe the first step is to reject the status quo. That is, we were told that at one point in time to be more realistic. We don't think that, quote unquote, realism in that sense is a good thing. We think it's really important to look at what your kid's potential is, where they're at, and how do you close the gap. The second key step is to work with people who are really good at working with kids like yours. Okay. Your kid may have an auditory processing problem, may have a problem with something, playing the violin or something like that. We're not the person for that. We're really good at these smart kids who learn differently and have these other challenges. And you want to get an assessment from someone who's an expert at kids like yours. So often we've seen psychological reports that come back with the same kid we're talking about that we might identify as a visual and kinesthetic learner with executive function issues and ADHD and a visual processing issues, and they'll come back with dyslexia and ADHD. Both of them can be correct. The problem is they miss the kid's key strength and they often miss the visual processing issue.
And remember, dyslexia is a specific kind of reading disorder. It's that sound symbol that we certainly also address, but it is just one of many of the other kinds of issues that we're also sort of talking
about.
And
in a future time, we'll talk about the kinesthetic learner with dyslexia, because it turns out probably 80 to 90% of the people with dyslexia are also visual kinesthetic learners.
Right. I happen to be a right brain kinesthetic learner that is not dyslexic, but I totally understand.
But we have kids ourselves who did fit into that mold.
Yes, we have.
And then you want to work with somebody who is really good at helping kids like yours, okay? And then you also want to learn, and I'm a left brain kind of guy. I'm logical, sequential, auditory, and used to be a screamer. Recovering screamaholic now, but that's for another time. You want to be trained on how to be the coach and advocate your child needs. Parents, one mom asked me, how come everybody doesn't teach the parent how to be the coach and advocate their child needs? We can't answer that because it's just in our DNA to figure out how do you help the kid by getting the teachers, the parents, and the kid on the same.
Right. It's an integral part of our program. It's not just something that it's like you have parent training and you have kids and that you have school. We really truly bridge all of this together because it is. It's so very important that the child know what they can count on. That there's something that is both the school, the parents, and the kids are all on the same page. It is kind of like a different language. Mark and I, as parents of two visual kinesthetic learners, certainly on we were the ones that found that we had to change. So a good share of what we're talking about is about being able to have a parent get on the same page that their child is on, get on the same page for themselves, but then on the same page that their kids are on, and be able to recognize that these kids are whole to part learners. And when we talk about outrageously successful, we're talking about that sort of internal outrage about these kids can think they're really special. So how do we have a really special success? And what does that look like?
And our expertise is with smart kids, struggling kids. Now, we've helped kids with IQs in the 60s to 140s. So it's a wide range. One sweet spot that we're extremely good at is a kid that's really smart and operating down here. Okay. We know how to really help that kid make significant progress.
Well, a good share of what we call low IQ is are kids that truly learn best hands-on. And our patented approach has truly worked with these kids to be more successful than some other programs have been. Okay. Whoops.
And I sometimes fly by.
Here we go.
There, you want to describe our assessment process?
Our assessment process is multifaceted. It is whether we are doing it in person here at our Coral Springs office or whether we are doing it on the internet for kids that live multiple states away or even overseas. We have an initial conversation where we delve into parent to parent about what you're experiencing, what you're feeling, and what your child's doing. We have using the structure of intellect assessment that looks at various and sundry background achievement and learning abilities. That some of our abilities are stronger than others, but what Dr. Mary Meeker, who founded this 70 years ago, found that there is really no ability that it's just not trained yet. So we need to be able to assess what abilities are some are more important than needed for school than others, but we need to be able to assess what those are. We also recently started using the Mind Print Executive Function Assessment for kids in third grade and above, which is an amazing tool that was designed by the University of Pennsylvania, and it is being used to assess those executive function skills. As an aside for you high school students, if you are a high school student and you're trying to sort out whether your child should take an SAT or ACT, this is the perfect place to go like what they're best suited for and what skills are needed. Maybe they are slower processing and that we need to be able to work on that. Maybe they are better at verbal reasoning skills or better at visual memory skills. What test would be the best for them? We have a Visograph for those students and families that can see us in our Coral Springs office. That actually is an eye-teaming, eye tracking. Actually, really looks at rapid naming as well. That deals with how our two eyes work together and where we need to be able to refer to outside professionals if need be. We use something called the M-Wave, which is used to be able to assess a child's heart rate variability, also known as breathing. You'd be amazed at the anxiety level for so many of these kids. And when they are anxious about something, or especially if they perceive something, they take this deep breath, hold their breath, and, anything can happen.
We've actually had kids whose heart rate was between 80 and 90. And we just mentioned the words Florida Standards Assessments, or FSA. And their heart rate shot up to 142. We didn't even have a test paper in our hand. Right. It's just the thought of those kind of tests spikes these kids' anxiety.
Right. Movement is a huge piece of the part of the 3D Learner program. We start right back with primal reflexes, infant reflexes, they're sometimes called. Actually, cross midline brain body integration exercises. It's an enormous piece and real foundational tool that we have used from the very beginning at 3D Learner, and we use it from our youngest children to our more senior adults. It's amazing how you can reconnect circuits on both your right and left brain to be able to have your whole brain used for brain and body integration. We learn, besides just sort of the answers that are the outcome of this assessment, we gain a lot from just the observation and being with your kids. Their energy, the energy that they get from us, from our entire team, and that we learn from this whole process. And that we give parents the feedback sessions that show both the results, work on goal setting, and we tailor the solution to be able to work best for your family.
And when we define outrageous success, we often sit in school meetings and this special ed person or another person will say, well, you can't expect these kids to make more than a year's gain at a time. But we've seen 2, 3, and in rare cases, 4-year gains in 4 to 6 months. And now with math has turned out to be the one area hit hardest by the inconsistent schooling these kids have received over the last couple of years. So kids are way behind. You can make dramatic changes, and especially the kinesthetic learner, they get lost sometimes in the words. They don't understand the problems, and they also don't learn how to check their work. When they understand what the problems ask, they're shown in a hands-on visual way how to do it, and they're told how to check it. They can often go from way behind to at grade level or above, because it turns out the right side of the brain is where a lot of the math work is done. So as long as they understand the words.
Well, what they've been missing more than anything is the manipulative hands-on work for the last couple of years. And for so many, it's sort of going back to be able to do that is really difficult. So kids are having that difficult transition. So we make that connection.
And to us, igniting a love for learning and for reading is really an integral part of it, because these kids are like an open circuit. If they've got a perception of reading, especially, that's something they're not good at, they tend to avoid it. When you tend to avoid it, you tend to fall further and further behind. But when you start getting good at it and you take care of that vision-related issues and the language issues, you can actually spiral up rather quickly. It's also important to recognize that getting the school-based services is really important. I didn't really include it here, but we help families actually get special ed evaluations faster. Are a pretty good advocate for kids, but we also put accommodations in place and things that work with the teachers rather than in a combative way.
Right.
We also combine the mind print assessment with Brainware Safari and our own tools to actually significantly improve executive function skills. We recognize the need for accommodations so that the child can actually survive as they build the skills, but our long-term goal is to build the skills. It's also important for your kid not only to be more successful in school, but to have more time to work on both their academics and their other skills. And we actually, because we're working on neural timing, attention, visual processing, and mental toughness, turns out we can help kids improve their baseball, their golf, their tennis, their dancing skills, their martial arts. It's really kind of part of our marketing is saying, we're going to actually excite your kid by helping them in a non-academic subject. And it turns out we've had a number of parents say, you hooked my kid on baseball, and now he's actually doing much better in school. It's okay. Of course, we want you to be
what their abilities are. When they start to be successful in one thing, it makes a big difference to be able to have that feeling of success and accomplishment, and they're more willing to be able to try it in other areas as well.
And we obviously want them to be both more independent and proud of who they are. And a lot of parents have said, I really feel great because I know I made the difference.
Right. Well, we're having a hard time skipping slides.
Okay. So some of our success stories, and we'll come. Some students will come to us as one young lady did. She was 2 years behind in second grade, and she'd been getting dyslexia help for 2 years. But dyslexia was only part of the problem. She was a working memory problem. There's a visual processing problem. There's a language problem. She actually made 2 years gains in 4 months, and then she made a third year's gain within 7 months. So she was actually, by the time she got to third grade, she was actually above grade level. We had a third grader who was told to go. Parents were told to go find another school, even though mom was on the board of directors, and we were helping make him 3-year gains within a year. Teacher said he made more gains than he had any student she'd had in 27 years of teaching. A fifth grader whose parents had spent $34,000 preceding summer, but it was with a program that was logical, sequential, and auditory. And this kid was a visual kinesthetic learner, and she also had a visual processing issue and an attention issue. When you addressed all those, she made 4 years gains, doubled her reading speed, and her homework time went from 2.5 hours to 1 hour and 15 minutes, and mom was only required to be there for 15 minutes to check her work. Okay, and then we'll help high school students, gain 4 years of their reading. And lately, we've been doing a lot more SAT work, where another one of our students got 1,400 after our first round of training, and now the goal is 1,500. So we help kids get into colleges, and sometimes helping a kid who might not be college material be able to succeed. We had one several years ago where they weren't sure he's going to college. He wound up getting accepted at all 7 colleges he applied to. And we've actually had the good fortune of getting kids into MIT, Harvard, Chicago, NYU, and the like. We didn't do it all, obviously, but each of those parents said we were the catalyst that transformed their kid. And as one mom said, you changed my kid's attitude, and that was 90% of the battle.
Exactly.
And what's next? Okay. Lots of times parents start with what we call a stress to success conversation, or in this case, assess for outrageous success conversation, where you can call us at 561-361-7495 or book a time on our Calendly account at 3dlearner.com now. And we'll explore your child's strengths and weaknesses, shift the conversation to what is it you're really trying to accomplish, and then explore what's possible. Sometimes it's just that's kind of the end of at least the round. And a lot of times parents say, I'd like to do an assessment, which is really the step that propels the child forward. And if you haven't been to our website, we encourage you to go there and download our strengths to success and challenges overview. And we also
just plain doing that. We've had so many parents comment about, I never really recognized that my child had that ability, and just even not only recognizing it, but bringing it up as a metacognitive piece towards your child about, you're really good at doing that, has made an enormous difference. So just even starting with that would be a place to start.
But if you join us next week, we'll actually go into more detail on, is your child a creative, right brain, visual, kinesthetic learner who's a lot smarter than present results would indicate. And again, if you want to, we encourage you to go to our 3D Learner YouTube channel. If you want to look at other videos we've done, or again, call us at 561-361-7495 or book a time to speak with us. And our goal is to help every parent put your child on their pathway from stress to outrageous success.
Thanks for joining us tonight or on review. We look forward to talking to you soon. Just remember, you are the reason your kids can be incredibly successful. Have a wonderful evening. Have a great weekend. Talk to you soon.